Last of Us. All right, so we got episode 7 yesterday. If you haven't played the game, of course, it's based on the DLC from the game, where if you just play the base game, this was not in it at all. It was later brought to light as like just extended. You know, you paid like I think it was like $15. You get like an additional story to it. Um, but it is nice because it adds a lot of more depth to who Ellie is as a person and what her relationships were with other people before meeting Joel. Now, glad to have Harris here and whoever else is watching. Oh, we lost him already. What are you gonna do? Um, but yeah, I thought it was a really good episode. Again, I don't think there's been a single bad episode yet. Ooh, Gunner, welcome. Right, okay, so I love what you had to say there, Gunner, for sure. Like, when you play the game, it's, you're playing it, right? And there's a lot more action. Oh, Shelly, what's up? Nice to see you. I only see one person in my audience, so it's kind of throwing me off. But, yeah, let's talk a little bit of The Last of Us, though. But again, when you play the game, there's a lot more action, but of course, a lot of story, because that's what The Last of Us was. But, like, with this show, we get a lot less of the action. Like, where I believe in the game, there were a lot more like clickers and walkers, where in this it was only just one that happened to just screw them. Like a very rare thing that could happen is just like the place seemed relatively good, but it was just one guy who just happens to just destroy their lives. Where they were just going to go separate ways, but this is just a great love story between two best friends that were of course born after the end of the world. Where like I love, to me, what like a great moment within the episode is just Riley cares about Ellie so much. Like they're best friends. Like they like the same stuff that's alien to them though because they never got to experience it. Where my favorite part is just them going like where Riley's like, okay, this right here is what I want you to see, and she takes Ellie to an arcade, and of course, like Ellie's never played a video game in her life. Like she just couldn't. So that was really awesome. Like Riley and her, like they liked Mortal Kombat, at least like the idea of it, the lore of it, and Ellie finally gets to play it. And of course, Riley's been a few times, so Ellie's gonna get whooped. But I just really like that. Like it's cool just seeing the eyes of these young girls who never got to experience like what the world used to be. Um, Now, I like the DLC from the game, and so I like the episode, but I kind of want to say it's my least favorite episode, even though I really did enjoy it. Um, like, again, it has nothing to do with like just it being like a LGBT and whatnot thing. Like same with I like the Bill and Frank episode a lot. I actually like that one more. Um, it was a really good episode, but like I need Joel. I think Joel's just that guy. I love seeing him. It was great to get a little bit of him like early in the episode where he's just like go, and that single tear when he sees Ellie go is like that's heartbreaking because he actually cares about her. Like they've been on the road for 3 months walking. Like of course they formed this huge relationship together. Where I like the last episode a lot, where he's just like I don't trust myself to take care of you. And literally at the end of that episode, literally gets stabbed in the gut, which kind of sucks because I think it's handled that's handled a little bit better in the game, in my opinion, because we get to see Joel go completely crazy on these guys, just random raiders at this university. But in this, it was just like it felt pretty anticlimactic. That's my main issue so far with the show as a whole, where it's like like the human dynamic is the easily by far the best part of it, which I think dives deeper as opposed to Joel, and then it does nerf Joel, for example, a little bit because in the game he's just this OP guy. I want to see Joel go off a little bit more, but that's why I'm excited for these last 2 episodes because I think Joel's gonna go completely crazy. If you played the game, you know what's gonna happen. But I pray like these last two episodes have a ton of action. So I don't think we've gotten a lot of it, but I don't think it's necessary. But again, you're in this, excuse me, we're in this post-apocalyptic world. Gosh, whew, had a brat for dinner, so it might be a little, whew. Um, Joel is one of my favorite fictional characters of all time. Like The Last of Us, the game is my favorite like game of all time, and one of my favorite universes. Now, in the game, Joel's just like this guy who's like he's just that dude who can just go to town on anyone he comes across, right? But because he has a lot of experience. And the show builds that from him talking to Tommy, being like, what I did to protect you. And then Tommy's just like, we murdered people, man. So it's like, I need to see that Joel a little bit more. But I do like him coming out of his shell because he's obviously closed off. He's only been like really tight with Tommy, Tess, and Bill and Frank in this universe, it seems. Until he meets Ellie. But like, he's not the guy he used to be, obviously, because he lost the love of his life, his daughter. But I want to see that hardened guy where next episode we see Ellie. What's going to happen to her, I think, is going to bring that out of him, where he has to be that guy again. So I'm looking forward to that. But again, to talk a little bit more about this episode, I'm going to take a little drink of water. Love it. But I like seeing how Ellie's in like this fascist, like the military, the government. I believe it's called FERPA. I'm trying to remember the name. But we get introduced to this this commander, like this captain, blah blah blah, who's just like, we've tried to punish you so many times, which of course is all new material. And he's just like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just talk with you because I think you need that, because she hasn't had any real parent figures her whole life. It's just been her in the school. She's only had like one good friend, which has been Riley. And she's just being trained to become like an officer, have some role within this QZ, this quarantine zone. Which I like that diving into with Riley being like, that's why she became Firefly. She wants to have a purpose, and she knows she can, but when she gets assigned like sewage treatment or whatever, where like basically she's just working on like picking up like like human shit and piss and whatnot, and I'm like, yeah, you would not want to be a part of this community anymore. I believe that. But you can tell that these two have great chemistry together. Like they are best friends. Like that's a very human thing. That's what I've loved so far throughout the show, is the human dynamic between these characters. Like anyone that you like see have a conversation, like Joel and Ellie is the best one, obviously. Like they were meant to find each other in this world and take care of each other, because like that, when your minds are just that makes everything so much better. And I think as a human being, we all know this and how that feels. And I haven't seen any show like this where it's like, wow, like it's truly just watching two people have a conversation, and it flows unbelievably. Love to hear it, Gunner. I that's just all I'm waiting for, is that yes, I am completely waiting for Joel just to go animal, and it's coming. Like it's coming. Like for sure, end of next episode as well as the finale. They have to have him go absolutely bonkers in the finale though, because like what he does is epic. And I know there's like, I know Gunner, you obviously played the game, so you know what's gonna happen, and I'm unbelievably excited for these last two episodes. I think they're gonna be two of the best episodes in any television show ever. And I know Pedro can just own it, and so I'm looking forward to that. Yeah. Again, like I keep talking about like the episodes before and after, where it's like, yeah, that we do gotta talk a little bit about this episode, because it is a very good episode. I do think it is my least favorite of the show, but again, like I think every episode's been really good. Like I think it's one of the best shows I've ever seen. Of course, it's all based on my favorite game, so I'm maybe a little biased, but I think what they've done is so good with how they've been able to expand it and also get to know these characters more, what their inner psyche's like. Where I do like what they have done with Joel, like they have nerfed him, but they have made him more human. Where again in the game he's like very stone cold, except for the ending where I'm like of the game you're like, oh man, like what he did here is completely being human. Where it's like it's a selfish act. It's not a selfless act. It's a selfish act. It's what we do sometimes because we want to put our needs before others sometimes. And like he's been a guy who's hasn't had anything go his way his entire life. So he finally makes that happen. So I can't wait for people to actually witness the finale. But I do love what they have done with Joel thus far with this show because, right, correct, Gunner. But like last episode, well, episode 6, right? Yeah, he's talking to Tommy, just getting a drink with him, and he's breaking down in front of Tommy, like I can't breathe half the time. Like my heart just feels like it's gonna come out of my chest. Whereas obviously he has anxiety, like a huge amount of anxiety. He's been through too much for a human to bear. And then now he has this thing in his life again that he just wants to make sure can like outlive him. So he's always had to be the guy to protect others because he's the one who's going to put others before himself ultimately. So I love what they've done there, where it's like, okay, it's just not this completely ridiculously OP character. Even though I love Joel from the game, I think he's epic. But I'm loving what Pedro is doing. I'm loving what the writers are doing. It does expand upon these characters and everything about this show. Now, this episode, I really enjoyed how. I just want to say, like, it was very. I'm trying to think of the right word for it. I don't want to say loyal. There's a better word for it, but like, they cared about the material that it came from quite a bit. Obviously, you have the main showrunner or the game designer, like, has a huge role in this show. So obviously, it's gonna be very. It's gonna care about what the material, like what came before. So like, there's just certain scenes at the mall where I'm like, oh man, it's like I'm literally replaying Left Behind, which was the DLC. That's what this episode's called. Where I'm like, man, it's like I'm literally just watching it instead of playing it this time. Where I love them just dancing with the mask on, and then they finally share that intimate moment together, where Ellie's just like, please don't go. He's like, you never want to lose like one of the most important people in your life, like platonic or not. You never want to lose that person. Like, it sucks, but sometimes that's life. You're never gonna have that person you can rely on all the time. It's like we grow, we change, we have to move on. But when Ellie just goes, just don't go, and Riley's like, okay, I won't go. Breaks your heart. And then Ellie goes for the kiss and whatnot. It's a good moment. And then immediately is taken away from us. Yeah, there's just this one infected, right? As comes in and just wrecks them both. And it's like, I was like, huh, maybe they didn't get bit here because it's just one guy. But I'm like, I was expecting like a ton more to come in after that because a lot of noise. There's gunfires or gunshots going off. And I was just like, oh, they both did get bit here. Like, I was like, oh, like that scene where Ellie's like just rubbing her arm, like, no, like, and it's like, wow. And I'm very surprised that they didn't go. That they trust the audience enough to just be like, okay, we're just done with this storyline. You don't have to show anything more than that they both got bit. We know that Ellie's immune, so it's like you're like, okay, Riley dies, obviously, and they don't really show it, which I do like because it just shows that the audience isn't stupid. I do kind of wish they went a little bit more into it. I was very surprised that this wasn't the episode with Ellie's mom. Because I'm looking forward to this scene. I think it's gonna be in the last episode, whenever Ellie's. Again, I don't want to spoil anything for people who haven't seen The Last of Us, or played The Last of Us. It's gonna be a certain scene in the finale where Ellie's gonna be incomposed, and I think that'll be like a going to Ellie's head, like what she's seeing in that moment. And it's gonna be a scene of her mom holding her. It's gonna be a good flashback, and I can't wait for that because in these last two episodes we're getting huge cameos. Where next episode we get Troy Baker, who voiced Joel in the video game, playing one of these guys. It's David's group, which is one of my favorite sequences in any video game ever. The whole winter like plot in the Last of Us is, God, it's so good. I can't wait for next episode. Like the finale is gonna be the one that probably hits the hardest, but like this next episode is we're gonna be like, God, Joel's a badass, and Ellie's like, oh, she's capable of taking care of herself at the same time. But again, Troy Baker's playing one guy in that group. I think he's playing one specific character from the game that will be an incredible scene. Right. Oh, yeah, of course, Harris. Like, I like that you mentioned that, like, that it was DLC. It wasn't part of the game, like, the main game. But it is nice that they are throwing everything into this. But I will say, though, I think they frankly could have stretched out the first game into 2 seasons, in my opinion. Oh no, the acting was brilliant. Like Storm, so thanks, Gunnar. But yeah, when they both get bit in this episode, when like Storm Reed just being like, it'd be awesome if we just lose our fucking minds together. I'm like, what? And that's exact dialogue from the DLC. And where Ellie's just freaking out, like busting glass and like losing her mind. She's like, this sucks. Like, but like when Storm Reed's character Riley just goes, it happens to all of us eventually. It's just happens to some of us sooner than later, and I guess that's us. So like let's just lose our minds together. And what's sad is that like Ellie's gonna have to witness Riley just become one of these things, and nothing happens to her because like this infection just doesn't spread. So that's so intriguing to me. God, you're right, Gunnar. The acting was fantastic amongst these girls. I was someone who I wasn't super on board with the initial casting of The Last of Us. Like I was like, oh, Pedro is a fantastic actor. I've seen him in so many different things. I'm like, I'm cool with him being Joel. He wasn't my first choice, but I'm so happy he plays Joel. At this point, there's like no one else I would pick for him. Like again, like in 2015, let's say, I probably would have made a movie with Ellen Page, now Elliot Page, as Ellie, and then Hugh Jackman as Joel. I think that would have been perfect. But I like what they're doing now. But I was never on board with Bella Ramsey. I liked her in Game of Thrones, but I'm like, I don't see her as Ellie. But then now I've seen her act as her. I'm like, oh, it's like I am watching Ellie from the game in live action. Like she acts very well. Like just that rage, that chaos, just that smart ass, but also has a great heart. I'm getting all that from Bella, and I'm very happy that she's playing Ellie. But anyway, to go back to my initial thought was for next week's episode, we're getting Troy Baker, who I think is going to play this one character. So it's going to be like, I think it's going to be a face-to-face scene with Joel and this guy. That's going to make me, as a fan of the original material, just geek out. And I'm like, it's just one of my favorite scenes with Joel where he's just going animal. So I'm excited for that. Just be prepared for me to just go off if I'm right about this. I've been right about how like almost every episode has been, like how it ends. I just don't want to talk about it for those who haven't like played through The Last of Us. But I see how they are pacing the show pretty perfectly. I just feel like I do wish they could have expanded it. But again, so to what I was saying before, if we do have a scene with Ellie's mom, we have 2 great cameos. So we're getting the Troy Baker who played Joel, and then the girl who voices Ellie in the game is supposed to be playing Ellie's mom. So I think it's awesome. It's awesome that we're getting these 2 legacies to be in this show and just play completely different roles. So that makes me very happy. There was one more point I wanted to touch on, but I think I lost it. But it is what it is. Overall, though, Left Behind I thought was a very, very good episode. I think last week's was my favorite in terms of like cinematography and like character development as a whole. So I think that's my second favorite episode as of now. Of course, the first episode's my favorite. I love just being brought into this world, getting to know Sarah more. So Joel's daughter. Where in the game we barely get to know her, and this we get to understand who she is as a human being more so, which I loved. And then of course you get that amazing beginning sequence in 1968 about like, oh, if this happens, we're fucked. But again, that's the first episode's easily my favorite episode. 'Cause it has one of the most heartbreaking scenes in anything in fiction. But again, this is probably my least favorite episode. But again, the acting was incredible. There's great scenes, great cinematography. I was a big fan, but these last two episodes, I truly think are just gonna hit miles harder. So guys, I can't wait to discuss episode 8 next week with y'all. And I'm gonna hope to try to get someone else on board with me. My friend Jorge and my friend Mike, they really like this show. Which I really like is that me and my buddy Jorge have played the game, and my buddy Michael has never like played it or seen any gameplay on it until I showed him. So what he really likes is that after we watch these episodes, I play certain scenes from the game, and he just loves me like, what? Like they are doing this incredibly well. I'm like, oh buddy, I know they are. Like it's literally like it's picture perfect how well they have done half of this, and they even change a lot of it, but they make it better half the time. And again with the Tess death, that's just more badass in the show. The Sarah death is a little bit different, still relatively the same, but there's just one thing that just kills me. Where in the game, I think it's a little more heartbreaking, just slightly. But there's one like just when Pedro just screams, "Tommy, help me!" I'm like, oh man, I feel that pain just from that line alone. But again, there's too many great scenes. Like the Sam and Henry whole sequence is definitely different compared to the game. Still love it. The only thing that I haven't loved so far is how much they changed the Bill stuff. Again, great love story and great episode. I just preferred in the game. I love the Bill and Ellie relationship. Like it's so funny. And there's one scene or one segment from the game I wish was in the show because it would have made some epic action. Because in the game there's a scene where Joel gets trapped in one of Bill's traps, right? And he's literally hanging upside down, and and then clickers and like other infected just keep roaming in, and Ellie's trying to free him from it, and he's just upside down, just piecing these things left and right. I'm like, oh, that would have been some cinematic gold. But again, I really like what they did with the Bill and Frank stuff, but it's just damn. There's some things I'm like, I hope they don't change too much for these last two episodes because I'll actually be kind of pissed. Is this where you see Joel just take over and be that guy? Damn. But again, guys, I'm hoping to again bring on some buddies on. Again, one who has not played the game and one who has. And I'm hoping to do that for these last two episodes. So I think it'd be fun. Gives me a second to not just talk the whole time because it's like damn. But I look forward to next week, guys. I hope you enjoyed this live stream, and I'm loving this show so far. I hope you guys are too. It is really showing to me that HBO Max is by far the best streaming service currently with original content, with how much money and care they put into these stories. You look at Euphoria, you look at Succession, you look at House of the Dragon, and then of course this. So guys, I'm Schmook, and I had a great time talking with y'all and talking The Last of Us, because again, it is one of my favorite things out there, and I love talking about it. So next week, look forward to around the same time, and I'm gonna hope to bring on some different faces on board. I think it'll be fun. All right, guys, I'll catch y'all very soon. Have a great night. Bye bye.